My name is Julia Barnes, and I've lived most of my life in different places. Communicating with family over time and over space is pretty much the story of my life. As a small girl, we went to New Zealand, where I lived my early childhood. And I remember the letters that we would receive there and the parcels that my grandmother was able to send out to New Zealand on the other side of the world, and how important these parcels were and probably for my mother, but certainly as children, to feel we had family in this distant place who would send these parcels. A familiar object to me was always the airmail letter, either receiving them, which was exciting in the post, or my mother writing them. They were a continual presence in our life living abroad in New Zealand. And then we returned to the UK, and we were able to reunite with family. But then my grandmother lost her husband, and she married again. She went to live in Africa. So the situation was then reversed or repeated. We again, the appearance of the airmail letters became constant. Different objects from Africa as well would come back, would appear in our home, that my grandmother would send bracelets or little statues again, and so we were again receiving these parcels, and the airmail letters were there as a presence, and then that was in my later childhood and teenage years, and then I myself went as a student and then stayed to Spain. And again, I have a lot of airmail letters from my grandmother and my other grandmother and my aunt and of course my mother. So my life seems to have been filled with airmail letters and gifts that bore the airmail stamp. And that airmail stamp represented to me, here's something good, someone's taken the trouble, and now in hindsight, someone's taken the trouble to go to the post office to wrap up this parcel, to send it off, and there was the presence of the blue airmail. Now, in recent years, with the coming of internet, we've all started to communicate in a very different way. Even the letter has disappeared, and we are now communicating by telephones. I in fact have two, one which is for the life abroad, and the other for the life in the UK, and they all have different functions. I have two sons. One is actually in Poland, and normally he would have his meal with me, and now we continue to have our meal together, he in Poland and I'm here, and we're able to set up the phones and talk to each other and enjoy our meal together and talk about exactly the same things. So things have really changed a lot over my lifetime, from letters to this instant communication anywhere in the world. But why do families want to communicate? I don't know. I think it's just that you know that you're a very special group of people, and you can just be yourself with them, and that they will always listen. And I think that's importantly the act of narrating, either in the letter, where people would narrate, what was going on, and somebody had a new house or had moved, people that we have in common, sharing this sort of common knowledge that's part of the family. So that would be in the written form, but in the spoken form, like me meeting with my son, again we're narrating the things that are important in our lives, the events, the feelings we had about them. And so we're able to do that, but in a much more spontaneous way, and probably with less work involved than there was previously. Narration has always been very important for families and for groups, and so I suppose that has a connection with the family, and the importance of saying what you're doing and hearing what others are doing, and knowing who these others are, because they're all shared and it's personal and close knowledge.